Season 6 of Franchise Canada Chats is brought to you by the Franchise Growth Lab. When we fail to scale, we limit our ability to leave a mark. Franchises in this country don't have a startup problem, they have a scale-up problem. We can count on one hand how many founders and franchise systems have achieved the 100-unit mark in the last 10 years. At Franchise Growth Lab, we know the right way to scale, and seeing your brand make a bigger impact is what ignites us. Check us out on LinkedIn or go to franchisegrowthlab.com and sign up to receive a free copy of the 10 Habits of Best-in-Class Franchisors. On this episode of Franchise Canada Chats, we had a chance to talk to one of the fastest growing emerging brands in Canada, UROSPOT. Travis had a chance to catch up with Aaron Craven, the CEO and Freedom founder, as well as one of Aaron's franchise partners, Rose Paymerd, who's a partner in Barrie, Ontario. Now, Travis, I know Aaron a little bit from conversations, and I know what a dynamic leader she is, but what did you learn that's brought this hyper growth?
Yeah, that's a great question. Again, I really enjoyed this conversation, but what I think my biggest takeaway was that when you build a franchise system around a huge addressable market, combine it with world-class support systems and very strong leadership, you have that recipe for hypergrowth in Canada.
Love it. This is a good one. I haven't listened to it yet, so I'm quite excited to hear it. In fact, I may pee a little bit. Enjoy the episode.
Okay, welcome everybody to today's edition of Franchise Canada Chats podcast. We are very excited to welcome both Rose Paymerd and Aaron Craven of UROSPOT to the podcast today. For those of you who know me, you guys probably know how excited I am about this because I have a massive brand crush on UROSPOT, and we couldn't wait to talk to both Rose and Aaron today. So why don't we just dive right in and start? Aaron, let's start with you. Maybe introduce yourself first and who you are, and then talk about your journey to franchising UROSPOT.
Sure. So I'm Aaron Craven. I'm the CEO and Freedom founder of UROSPOT, and I'm so thrilled and grateful to be here today, Travis, along with Rose Paymerd, who is actually our first franchise partner at UROSPOT. So, mad respect for Rose and the journey that she's taking with us. So the journey for us started, to be honest, a long time ago. I guess it's not that long ago. It feels like it because of the pandemic, but 2019. And I was an executive in healthcare for over 23 years. I'd been the president of a pharmaceutical company and a vice president with 3M. And I'd always worked in that kind of healthcare, brand marketing, innovation space. At the same time, I was a woman who was really frustrated, and it impacts 2 out of 3 women over the age of 35. And it's just those pesky and annoying bladder leaks and urgency issues. And it's something that women don't like to talk about, but it impacts almost all of us. And the feminist in me was just kind of frustrated. Why hasn't this been solved? Peed their pants every time they laughed in a meeting or coughed or, shot a hockey puck, swung a golf club. This would have been solved 50 years ago. So why are women still expected to just kind of live with this? And I have a lot of physicians that my cousin is an OB-GYN. I surround myself with a lot of healthcare providers because of the career I've had. And so I would complain about it. And, they'd tell me I could go get surgery or just wear pads or do these exercises at home. And I thought there's got to be a better way. And in doing my own research, discovered this incredible technology that was making inroads in Europe and in the US, but really didn't have a lot of presence in Canada. And when I tried this technology myself, which meant I sat on basically a chair, a futuristic looking chair that does 11,000 muscle contractions or Kegels, and actually reboots the connection between your brain, your bladder, and your pelvic floor and strengthens that pelvic floor, all of a sudden the problem went away. Like literally I was back to where I was before kids, and all those challenges were just in a distant memory. And I just kept thinking, what if this existed, a place where women could go and men and get solutions to this problem? And so after months of kind of thinking about it and spending late nights building the brand in my mind and on spreadsheets and modeling it out, finally decided to take the plunge as an entrepreneur and start UROSPOT. And the rest is kind of history. And here we are today.
Interesting. I'm gonna come back to just what was that trigger that sort of made you step away from your corporate career. By the way, everyone who's listening, Erin she won't brag about it, but she was I believe the youngest president of a pharmaceutical company, youngest female president of a pharmaceutical company in Canada at 32, I think it was. Hey, how's that for research? No, so talk to me first a little bit more, and just so you know, the audio was a little bit patchy, so I might just sort of ask a question again. But talk to me a little bit more about the problem for women that you were trying to solve and how pervasive it is in the population.
Yeah. I mean, to me, pelvic health challenges are a silent epidemic. There are women, everyone when you know, there's somebody like struggling with one of these conditions, be it bladder leaks, urgency, night waking, pelvic organ prolapse. There's a lot of these problems that are deemed pelvic health challenges or pelvic floor dysfunction that really wreak havoc on women's lives. And we're pretty much told to live with it. It's been very normalized. But the truth is you don't have to live this way. And so UROSPOT is a team of pelvic health experts where we use the best of technology and the best of education and health coaching and marry that together to really present and offer modern pelvic health to women and men who are struggling with this condition. And like I said, for women, it's like 2 out of 3. It's the number one reason women end up in long-term care facilities.
Yeah, see, that's crazy. And I think what really, I guess, kind of hits home there is when you said, a silent epidemic. People don't talk about it. And as embarrassing as this is to say as a man, I understand I'm a man interviewing about pelvic floor challenges. If this were primarily a male problem, and let's say a man, peed his pants a little bit every time he swung a golf club, do you feel that this would have been addressed sooner? This condition would have been addressed sooner?
Yes. I mean, this does impact men, but not at the rate that it impacts women. And so, the feminist in me would get super frustrated about that and say, why hasn't this been solved yet? Why, if this was a predominantly male issue, for sure, there would have been more innovation happening. But femtech is the industry that we're in. And that's where female healthcare and technology are coming together and colliding to solve unmet needs in women's healthcare. And it's about time. Like, it's an amazing movement. It's a huge growing industry. And, women are they're kind of like rising up and saying, enough is enough. I don't want to normalize these conditions anymore. I want solutions for them, and I deserve solutions for them.
Amazing. Okay, well, going back and by the way, Rose, I'm going to ask you a similar question in a minute, but Erin, you had this sort of amazing journey through corporate, through corporate Canada. You had high-ranking executive positions. Just for everybody out there, the people that are listening, there are people out there that are looking at buying franchises. There are people that are looking at just becoming entrepreneurs. I'm really curious of when did this switch flip for you that you had to do something different?
Yeah, it's a tough and personal journey, but I find the more I share it, I can't believe how many people can relate to it and are kind of feeling the way I felt in the corporate world. And I had, I use quotations, I had it all. I had the big corporate title, I had the pension plan, I had the company car, the executive, I had hundreds of people working for me, but I was miserable. I didn't feel like I was using my gifts. And I felt honestly like my soul was kind of dying in that environment. I was just kind of rolling numbers every month and saying, here's what we'll do this month, and here's what we'll do next month. And not getting to really, be in what I feel is kind of my zone of genius and use that. And so when this kind of moment happened, this light bulb moment where I had this idea for UROSPOT, I just felt so called to take the next step and to continue taking the next step until I got to a point where it's like, hey, this is happening. We are doing this. There's no turning back. And ultimately, I chose to bet on me. And I'm very fortunate to have an amazing partner, my husband, who said, I bet on you too. Like, let's do this. You go, you leave your career and let's go do this. It was the scariest thing I've ever done. I'm not going to lie, to leave that kind of security, but I have never looked back, and I wish to God I had done it sooner.
Yeah. So on the note of scary and leaving security, Rose, I have to ask you. You are you're a teacher. You teach in Barrie. You are probably in one of the most secure, stable environments. Where you can build up a steady path to retirement. Why, in God's name, invest in a business?
Good question. So COVID made us crazy, and I also have 4 children who all play competitive sports, and I was used to running all the time. And when we were in lockdown, it was lovely for the first little while because we got to spend time together and life was slower. And then as things progressed and we were homeschooling and I was teaching online or doing guidance counseling from online and helping my children with online school, and we didn't know how long it was going to go. And then I realized when I'm not running them places, so when they do leave the nest, what am I going to do? Where is my passion? And I dabble in gardening, but I needed a passion. And I was really excited when Erin told our group of friends about her idea. And at that time I said, if you ever want to open one in Barrie, we'd be interested. My husband, Nathan, has always wanted to own a business, but nothing he ever came to me with excited me. So this was just the perfect combination of something that excited both of us. And we really felt had such a purpose in our area and we could really help people. So it wasn't necessarily about leaving teaching. It was about finding something I could be super excited about.
So how hard was it? I mean, let's face it, there's probably been, a million times in my life where I've had a friend start a business or do something cool or start a new job, and I'll say, I'll be your first customer. And then when push comes to shove, it's like, ooh, that's really expensive. I don't know if I'll be your first customer. How hard was it to, the mindset? Because this is an investment. I mean, UROSPOT is, Erin, what's the average investment for a UROSPOT location?
It's probably between $375 to $475 based on how construction costs are going up right now post-COVID.
Right. So that's not chump change. I mean, how were those discussions? What were those discussions like at home of investing in your future to that degree?
Well, for us, we had many years ago gotten into real estate and rental properties. So we had some value in that, and that continued to go up during COVID. So it was, in our minds, a way to diversify. So instead of continuing in just real estate or investing in the market, which was so unstable at the time, it was an investment in our family in that we could start this business, have something we're excited about, teach our children a lot of lessons about business ownership and taking chances, because my husband and I have very comfortable, safe jobs, and sometimes it's good for our children to see that we don't have to stay safe. Sometimes it's about being excited and enjoying what you're doing also.
Wow, I love that. Yeah, you know what? That is almost so. I really love that. Actually, that is almost opposite of a lot of parenting advice. Of get good grades, go to university, pick a career that you can work a long time in. It's amazing to me that you guys had that sort of foresight and that wisdom to be able to sort of want to show that to your kids. But Erin, back to you real quick here. Franchising. I mean, there's always, when there's a successful corporate launch like you had in London, there's always discussions internally about franchising versus corporate expansion. And I know, just because we've had conversations before in the past, I don't want to ask you sort of, why franchise for fast expansion? I want to know your why behind franchising, if you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it kind of comes back to how we found the foundation of UROSPOT being built on our mission, our vision, and our values. And these aren't just things that we, throw up on a piece of paper and hang on a wall. These are our DNA. They literally are the DNA of every communication, every decision, everything we do. And so when we founded UROSPOT, the plan was always that we wanted to help as many people, especially women, as we could in terms of changing their lives from a quality of life standpoint. But we also wanted to give as many women as possible the chance to become an entrepreneur. That was really what it was all about for us. And so female empowerment is one of our values. And passion-driven purpose is another one, right? So, purpose-driven passion is another one. And so we wanted both of those to come through in the fact that we would expand this company, not necessarily always through corporate expansion, but by giving women this chance to do what I did, to leave a place where you're unhappy, or to challenge yourself like Rose is doing for a different reason, but to go out and get a chance to become an entrepreneur and feel what I was feeling. Because the most joy I've ever felt in my career is when I walk into a UROSPOT clinic and get to talk to these women and see how we're changing their lives, and men as well. And so I just thought everyone deserves to feel this when they come to work every day. And let's be honest, running your own business is really hard, right? Really hard. And I knew that if we were to choose to grow through corporate expansion, that was going to take time. That was going to be very, very difficult. And it would be slower. And we wanted to get this, I want to be able to have every woman have access to this technology. So by franchising, it gave us an opportunity to move faster, and again, to spread the brand across the country faster, and to give more women and men this chance to become an entrepreneur.
Okay, let's do a quick timeline check here. So we're talking October 2019, correct? Was the launch of the London location. Yep. And we are now, where are we now? April of 2022. So you were franchising essentially a year into your existence, just over a year into your existence, correct?
In a global pandemic.
It's through a global pandemic, after opening a second corporate store during a global pandemic, due to this being an essential service. Okay, so fast forward, so that makes October the 3-year mark of actually launching UROSPOT as a concept, not just a franchise concept, right?
Yeah, I'll give you a little glimpse of the timeline, because I know it is a little bit crazy. I'm very type A, and I like to get things done, and I can't sit idle. And so the blessing of the pandemic for us was, we always knew franchising was in our long-term strategy. We opened October 7th of 2019. 4 months later, we had to close our doors in the first wave. So that's when everybody shut down, right? The second, third, all the other waves, we've been deemed essential, but in the first wave, we had to shut our doors 4 months after we opened the business, and it was doing extremely well. We decided to use that downtime, because I couldn't just sit there, to accelerate the growth plan. And so we opened our second location during that pandemic, during that second wave, I guess. And we built the franchise system. I used every single day that company was closed to build the system, so that we would be ready to sell as soon as possible. And yeah, we're sitting here basically. It's been 12 months since we started selling franchises, and we will have sold 12 in 12 months.
12 in 12 months, and probably a few more in the pipeline ready to go, I would assume. You know what? I'd like to commend you on that, but there's actually a level of insanity to what you have gone through, and that type of hyper growth from, not even a 3-year-old company to having, 12 locations sold and more in development. And Rose being the very first one. Rose, when did you open your doors?
We opened after many construction delays, February 7th of this year.
February 7th this year. And actually, let me back up before we get into launch. Talk to me a little bit about, I mean, Aaron just talked about being sort of type A, spending, the time not being idle and building out the systems and the training and support. You were the first to launch. Tell me what the training and support has been like with UROSPOT getting ready.
It has been fantastic. So I have like mild experience in business. Before I became a teacher, I worked in the banking system for 4 years. I have a little bit of knowledge, but nothing really owning a business kind of knowledge. So it was really well set up. So I was able to follow along with my husband. It was very like timeline sensitive. You could work ahead if you had time, but you knew exactly when each step needed to be completed. So it was very user friendly. As long as you followed the plan in place, then things are turning out lovely.
Right. Well, and clearly, and Aaron, your background is your Zoom background right now is from what location?
That's the lounge in our London clinic.
That's the lounge. And Rose, I'm assuming that's your location in Barrie?
Yes, that's the lounge in Barrie.
We can see the consistency in the systems. I think that Wayfair is probably very happy that there's multiple brown or those color chairs going out. Okay, so then you felt ultimately, what you're saying is you felt ultimately prepared. I mean, nothing can prepare you for the launch of a business. But tell me a little bit about, because from what I understand, you had a pretty successful opening. Is it something that you would have expected?
That's hard to answer. I mean, you're always hopeful that it's going to go really well. Construction was the most frustrating portion of the journey. We had delays with contracting and supply chain because of COVID. So there were lots of different delays, but once the doors opened, because we had delays and we'd already hired our nurse and she was well trained and ready to go, she had some clients ready to start the day we opened. So we've had a steady stream of very happy clients coming through the door and lots of wonderful success stories. And you get to see the growth of clients from when they come in really shy, worried about talking about their issues, to they're opening the door to the clinic for their 4th treatment, screaming about their success when they sneezed the last time. So we had a client yesterday show up in her white pants because it was her 6th treatment and she wanted to celebrate because she finally had the confidence to wear white pants. So it's hard to believe it's only been 2 months, but those moments just energize us every day.
Amazing. So it's interesting when you're trying to interview two people that won't brag about themselves. So I'm going to flip the script a little bit here. And Aaron, why? I mean, we know that Rose, and you had another franchise open at the same time, opened very successfully. Why do you think it is that in a smaller market like Barrie that Rose was able to have such an amazing opening?
I was going to jump in because she's not tooting her own horn enough here. They have had a phenomenal launch. Like, it is great. It's blowing my mind how successful they are. They're at a, like, I'm almost jealous because I'm like, my God, where they're at 2 months in, it took us, a certain number of months to get there, and they're starting out of the gates like that. And it's the exact same thing that we're seeing in our other location that opened around the same time as Rose, which is in Calgary. And then we have more coming in the next few months. But Rose has an innate business acumen. So while she's saying I didn't work in business, she has street smarts, book smarts. She's got the business acumen. She just gets it. And I've never met anyone in my entire life who can get more done than Rose Paymard. So the fact that, like, I had to quit my job and put all my eggs in one basket to do this. Rose is like 4 kids, a dog, a teaching career, a business, competitive sports. And she's just like, yeah, sure, I'll do this podcast too. Like, she can just get stuff done. And so because our system, and I am a lover of systems, process will set you free. I firmly believe that. So we built UROSPOT. It really is process driven. Like process will set you free. That's what I believe. And Rose, followed it to a T, but it just, she was able to work ahead when she needed to. Like she said, the processes allow for that. And so she was just beyond prepared when their doors opened, and they have just been crushing it.
Right.
And I do need to mention, it has not been me on my own. My husband does a lot of the stuff technically and behind the scenes when I'm at work. So it is a partnership also. So I don't think I'd be able to do it with a full-time job without his contribution, for sure.
So for those of you listening, you've heard that come up a couple of times now. One of the keys to success is obviously a supportive spouse. But also for anyone listening that is contemplating a franchise, whether it's this one or whether it's another one, there's a couple of interesting things that were touched on right there. And it was the pre-launch marketing systems and the franchises starting with wind in their sails right out of the gates. And I hate this word. I have to come up with a better one because turnkey is such a stupid word. But really, the UROSPOT system, the UROSPOT franchise, from what I'm hearing, is a very turnkey solution. And what I mean by that is it sounds like you're supported right from the second you sign the franchise agreement and are sort of not left figuring things out on your own, which is the reason that people get into franchising. Erin, can you touch on that a little bit about, like, from the second someone signs a franchise agreement, the type of support and coaching that they get, and then Rose, I'll get you to comment on it as the end user after that.
Right. So our name is UROSPOT, Euro meaning like urology, and spot as in this is the place you come, right? So our whole system from the moment you sign is broken into 3 buckets: find your spot, build your spot, launch your spot. And there's a lot of overlap between those silos, but that's really the process that we move you through. And the coaching starts on day 1. And goes all the way through to the moment you open your doors. And each has, playbooks and checklists, and, we're able to real time stay up to date on where our franchise partners are at, where they're stuck, what they need help with, so that we can help resolve that. And, any franchise system will tell you the first partner, I mean, they're blazing the trail, right? And they're testing some systems that maybe haven't been tested yet. And Rose and Nathan, for sure went through some of those challenges. I always say that someday they're going to be standing on the stage at a UROSPOT conference and telling their stories. But the nice thing is, just like, for example, there was a tornado in Barrie right when they needed to be, going in for their permit, and permits were significantly delayed because so much rebuilding was happening in Barrie at that time. There was 100 issues just like that. But the nice thing is they were never left alone, obviously, to figure those out, and we could pivot where we needed and adjust as we needed. And by going through the challenges they went through, we've already made so many changes to the system so that any franchise partners that are following them won't even, have to experience any of those little moments other than a tornado, if that were to happen. God forbid.
Yeah. Nothing says construction delay like a tornado. But no, that was, I remember that was certainly a scary time. So Rose, touch on what those systems have meant to you as, someone taking, basically, covering your eyes and jumping off the entrepreneurial cliff.
Well, I would say that Erin and I have been friends for a very long time, and it's probably because we're both type A that helps a little. So having those systems in place when you are literally blind going in gave a lot of peace, for sure. So I could go to whatever system we were at, whether we were finding our spot or launching our spot, and just go through everything and just confirm, no, we're completely on track. I can breathe. I'm good. I have everything done that we need to. And if I wanted to, I could go back and just review some stuff just to further my understanding or just feel that much more confident. But the systems were incredible for just keeping everything on track and feeling confident with what the next step needed to be, for sure.
And if I can just jump in, what Rose did so well, Travis, too, which I would encourage anyone who's considering a franchise partner or becoming a franchise partner to think about in any system, is she arrived at training, trained. She arrived at training. There was nothing she hadn't read. She knew it all. She was so prepared. And, you know, I always say to our partners, when you come to the fundamentals week of training, it should never be the first time you hear something. You're here just to show us really that you can do it. And Rose had done her homework, man. She was so ready to be at that training course. And it left us with so much confidence to know that, you know, she could turn around the next day and open her UROSPOT and she'd be fine.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's dive into that a little bit more, because, you know, obviously, you know, when you explain the technology, when you explain what UROSPOT does, some people are probably thinking, well, I mean, clearly I'm not a urologist, I'm not a healthcare professional, you know, I don't have this type of expertise. Do you need to be you know, what are the most, so start with that and then finish with the most important qualities of a UROSPOT partner or prospective UROSPOT partner?
Yeah, I mean, what I love to see is business acumen and healthcare acumen. If those two things can come together, that's a pretty amazing combination, but I know that we're not going to find that all the time. At the end of the day, what I want most, number one, is someone who is so bought into our values, our mission, and who we are, our vision, that they want to be a part of this. And so we've had partners who have actually become franchise partners after being clients. They came through the system, it changed their life, and they said, I want to do this, you know. And we've had multiple nurses now who've come through the system as a nurse and said, I want to leave nursing and do this. That's amazing. We have partners like Rose who don't necessarily have a healthcare background, but are bought into the why. Like that's, you heard her, it lights her up, it excites her. That's what she wanted to be a part of. And in that model, Rose has hired a full-time healthcare professional to be on her team. And we also have pelvic health physiotherapists on our team, as well as registered nurses. So it's intradisciplinary in our clinics, and we don't expect you to know, how do you hire a nurse? We teach you how to do that. Everything from the job description to the interview questions, everything is done for you. And we obviously help you through that interview as well. So, you know, we have nurses who come through and they're going to work in the system. They're buying a franchise, but they're going to work in it every single day. And we have people like Rose who work on the business. They have hired their healthcare professionals, and they are kind of managing it, not in the clinic every day, but outside the clinic.
Even though I would say I really love being there every day. I'd like to stop by just because I love the energy there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's a pretty unique, you guys you're selling freedom, really. I mean, the people that have been living with a condition, and, you know, and looking, you know, planning out their day, planning out their routes on where the nearest bathroom is. You're selling freedom from that, which I love. So back to the support and you know, again, we're in a femtech industry, healthcare industry. Let's talk a little bit about, we've talked about the business model. Let's talk about the advisory support. I mean, on your website, you have a pretty, you know, it's a rock star team of medical support and medical advisors. Erin, can you talk a little bit about that team?
Yeah, I mean, it's important to me. Everything I've ever done in healthcare, I'm not a physician. I should probably have pointed that out earlier on. And so I've always worked in a fashion where I surround myself with subject matter experts in that space who will advise me from day one. So the very first person that, you know, one of the first people I talked to when I had this idea was my cousin, who is an OBGYN here in London, Ontario, and had her kind of join me as we reviewed all the clinical research on this technology and all the Health Canada approvals and the FDA approvals, and kind of just having that voice to say, you should be looking at this more. And then in terms of building out the protocols, I was like, this has to be evidence-based medicine from day one. And so we have a team that includes Dr. Laura Sovereign, who is an OB-GYN. She's based out of London, Ontario, mother of 3. To have a surgeon believe so strongly in a non-invasive treatment says a lot. And she is our medical director, so she has a big role to play with the overall company. And then we also have Dr. Sinead Dufour, who is really like the pelvic health guru in Canada. And she helps us with all of our pelvic health physiotherapy protocols, advising us on compliance, all of those big, not really sexy, fun issues, but we have to have the right people advising us on that. And really what we're doing, and which is why I applaud someone like Rose for taking the leap like she did to be the first, because, when you buy a franchise that's in, I don't know, like burgers or subs or whatever, like that category has been around forever. We are creating a new category. We have created a new category. We are disrupting a way that a medical condition has been treated in the past and really creating a brand new category. So that has this extra element of risk, if you will, if you're in someone like Rose's shoes trying to make a decision like this. And so for that reason alone, it's even more important that we surround ourselves with these credible experts. And then thirdly, we have Dr. Joseph Barinholtz, who is also a surgeon, an OBGYN in the US, who was actually the first to ever publish a clinical trial on this technology and the first to ever use the technology in North America. And he's become not just an advisor, but a really dear friend. And he actually owns the Michigan Center for Women's Health in Michigan. And he has put a UROSPOT inside the Michigan Center for Women's Health, almost like a Tim Hortons in a hospital would be the analogy for Canada, because he believes so strongly in what we're doing.
Right. Amazing. So how important, you touched on Dr. Sinead Dufour. How important is it to have that pelvic floor physio advocacy within the business?
It's everything. If you think about innovation, there's always been skeptics when it comes to innovation, right? And I always say the Stone Age didn't disappear because we ran out of stones, right? It's innovation happened and we moved on. And so when you think about like LASIK eye surgery coming out 30 years ago, there were people who were very, concerned and maybe a little threatened by that, the optometrists, and thinking, it's going to be one or the other. But in fact, both live very happily. And when I started UROSPOT, my vision was always that a rising tide will lift all boats. And so I knew that our solution wasn't going to be the solution for every person, but that we would do a lot of really good marketing that would raise awareness and let women raise their hand and say, I need help. Seek that help. And if they come to UROSPOT and we can't help them, I would send them out, into there's so many wonderful physios in the community who could help them. And at the beginning, we were faced with a little bit of skepticism from some of the physiotherapy community, because they're like, wait a minute, they're very, I own the pelvis. This is my area. And the technology was relatively new. But since then, more and more published clinical studies. Sinead, Dr. Dufour has been an amazing voice to help reassure the physio community to say, look, this is the place in therapy that this belongs. It is a great non-invasive option. It is an adjunct to the typical physiotherapy that we receive in regards to education, behavior, lifestyle modification, all of that. When you take those elements and you layer in this technology, good things happen. So, she's been wonderful in that regard.
Wow. So Rose, on that note, with the medical advisory team in place, the system in place, knowing that it's a newer technology, how has the response been from the medical community in Barrie for you guys?
We've had a lot of great support. We have urologists that are very interested, family doctors that have been sending their patients as clients to us. We have an immunologist who's very excited about the technology and how it can be preventative for some of his patients, preventing urinary tract infections. So we've had a lot of very positive response from the community.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Travis, that there's so much demand out there and there's not enough people that can serve. How, like, when I say epidemic, I'm not just making that up. This is a silent epidemic. And as the population continues to age, this problem is just going to get bigger and bigger. So we talk to urologists all the time who say to us, I don't have any time to treat mild to moderate incontinence. Like my wait list is already a year long, if not 2 years long for a urogynecologist. And so women are sitting on these wait lists and they want to take action for themselves. And that's what's so great about this is self-referral. You do not need a physician. You can just raise your hand, pick up the phone, book online, come in and be empowered to take care of your own health and wellness. And the physicians are really loving that angle.
Amazing. Okay. So just in case at the beginning of the call, the audio was a little bit patchy. So do me a favor and just, again, talk about the demographics again, who you serve, who you support, and the percentage of the population that is affected by this, just one more time.
So at UROSPOT, we treat a condition that affects 2 out of 3 women over the age of 35 are struggling with bladder leaks, urgency. The medical term for that is incontinence, but we don't like to use that term because women kind of relate that to something their grandmother had, and they don't understand that when they laugh, cough, sneeze, and experience a bladder leak, or when they get in their car and they stop at every bathroom on the way from here to, their office, that's actually incontinence, and they don't need to struggle with that. So women the research shows they struggle in silence. Most women wait 6.5 years before they ever go seek help for these problems. It is the number one reason that women end up in long-term care. And 50%, 1 out of 2, 50% of women over the age of 50 have a pelvic organ prolapse, which is a condition where the pelvic organs that rest on top of your pelvic floor slip out of place and descend down into the vaginal cavity. And that impacts 50% of women. Most of us don't even know what it is. We've never been taught this. We've never been told this. And not only that, we don't even know if we have it. So this is part of what we do, which is not just treatment, but education and empowering. We tell women what this is, what it feels like, how you know if you've got it, how to prevent it. And that prevention piece is what so many women, I find, at least in my demographic, I'm in my 40s, they've watched their mothers and grandmothers go live their life like this. They see the commercials every day for poise pads and diapers, and the world trying to convince us that it's sexy to wear a diaper. Like, there's nothing about that that's attractive. And so women are saying enough is enough, and I want help with this. Now, at the same time, I will just add that we also treat men. Men do struggle with these conditions as well, especially after they've had prostate cancer. And that's a demographic that we see a lot of.
Yeah. No, listen, I'm a recently turned 48-year-old man, and I'll be going in for a tune-up for sure.
Love it.
I get it. So, I mean, I think for people taking notes at home there, I think the size of the market and what we like to call the addressable market for any type of business that you are looking to go into, the addressable market for this solution is massive. When you're talking about, 2/3 of women, that was right, 2/3 of women over 35, and then about the prolapse of half the women over 50. I mean, that is it doesn't get much better than that from a size of a market. So on that note, Rose, you've had an incredibly successful opening, and again, can't congratulate you enough on that. And I don't want to put you on the spot here, but when are the plans for, is there a location 2 in the, in the works? Are you guys thinking additional locations?
Maybe. Yes, we are in discussions for another location.
Okay. So again, for anyone considering different franchise opportunities, those are always sort of green lights to look for is how many franchise partners have multiple locations, are looking at multiple locations, because that is going to give you a whole lot more confidence in the business model and maybe even provide you with some again, just confidence in some of the questions that you have that the franchisor can't actually answer when you're going through the franchise discovery process. Okay, so I'm going to wrap up here pretty quick, but Aaron, where do we find out a little bit more if people are interested in learning more about becoming a UROSPOT franchise partner? What's the best route?
Yeah, definitely visit the website, urospot.com. We also have urospotfranchising.com. And that's UROSPOT. And of course, they can find me on LinkedIn. Instagram is at the UROSPOT, and same with Facebook. Perfect. Amazing, guys. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And Rose, thanks for going through your journey, and Aaron, yours too. You know, we really appreciate it. And hopefully the people listening to this podcast, get educated a little bit more, not only on the UROSPOT opportunity, but franchising in general. Thanks for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, guys.